Mahatma Gandhi, anti-war activist, 1869 to 1948. Mahatma Gandhi was the primary leader of India's independence movement and also the architect of a form of non-violent civil disobedience that would influence the world. Who was Mahatma Gandhi? Mahatma Gandhi, October 2, 1869 to January 30, 1948, was a leader of India's non-violent independence movement against British rule in South Africa, who advocated for the civil rights of Indians. Born in Potala, India, Gandhi studied law and organized boycotts against British institutions and peaceful forms of civil disobedience. He was killed by a fanatic in 1948. Religion and beliefs. Gandhi grew up worshipping the Hindu god Vishnu and following Jainism, a morally rigorous ancient Indian religion that espoused non-violence, fasting, meditation and vegetarianism. During Gandhi's first stay in London, from 1888 to 1891, he became more committed to a meatless diet, joining the executive committee of the London Vegetarian Society, and started to read a variety of sacred texts to learn more about world religions. Living in South Africa, Gandhi continued to study world religions. The religious spirit within me became a living force, he wrote of his time there. Immersed himself in sacred Hindu spiritual texts and adopted a life of simplicity, austerity, fasting and celibacy that was free of material goods. Gandhi's ashram in the Indian caste system in 1915. Gandhi founded an ashram in Ahmedabad, India, that was open to all castes. Wearing a simple loincloth and shawl, Gandhi lived an austere life devoted to prayer, fasting and meditation. He became known as Mahatma, which means great soul. In 1932, Gandhi, at the time imprisoned in India, embarked on a 6-day fast to protest the British decision to segregate the untouchables, those on the lowest rung of India's caste system, by allotting them separate electorates. The public outcry forced the British to amend the proposal. Gandhi's assassination in the late afternoon of January 30, 1948, the 78-year-old Gandhi, weakened from repeated hunger strikes, clung to his 2 grandnieces as they led him from his living quarters in New Delhi's Birla House to a prayer meeting. Hindu extremist Nathuram Godse, upset at Gandhi's tolerance of Muslims, knelt before the Mahatma before pulling out a semi-automatic pistol and shooting him 3 times at point-blank range. The violent act took the life of a pacifist who spent his life preaching non-violence. Godse and a co-conspirator were executed by hanging in November 1949, while additional conspirators were sentenced to life in prison. When and where was Gandhi born? Indian nationalist leader Mahatma Gandhi, born Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, was born on October 2, 1869, in Potala, Potala, India, which was then part of the British Empire. Wife and family. Mahatma Gandhi's father, Karamchand Gandhi, served as a chief minister in Potala and other states in western India. His mother, Putlavati, was a deeply religious woman who fasted regularly. At the age of 13, Mahatma Gandhi wed Kasturba Mukherjee, a merchant's daughter, in an arranged marriage. In 1885, he endured the passing of his father and shortly after that the death of his young baby. In 1888, Gandhi's wife gave birth to the first of 4 surviving sons. A second son was born in India 1893. Kasturba would give birth to 2 more sons while living in South Africa, one in 1897 and one in 1900. Early life and education. Young Gandhi was a shy and remarkable student who was so timid that he slept with the lights on even as a teenager. In the ensuing years, the teenager rebelled by smoking, eating meat and stealing change from household servants. Although Gandhi was interested in becoming a doctor, his father had hoped he would also become a government minister, so his family steered him to enter the legal profession. In 1888, 18-year-old Gandhi sailed for London, England, to study law. The young Indian struggled with the transition to Western culture. Upon returning to India in 1891, Gandhi learned that his mother had died just weeks earlier. He struggled to gain his footing as a lawyer. In his first courtroom case, a nervous Gandhi blanked when the time came to cross-examine a witness. He immediately fled the courtroom after reimbursing his client for his legal fees. Gandhi in South Africa. After struggling to find work as a lawyer in India, Gandhi obtained a 1-year contract to perform legal services in South Africa. In April 1893, he sailed for Durban in the South African state of Natal. When Gandhi arrived in South Africa, he was quickly appalled by the discrimination and racial segregation faced by Indian immigrants at the hands of white British and Boer authorities. Upon his first appearance in a Durban courtroom, Gandhi was asked to remove his turban. He refused and left the court instead. The Natal Advertiser Mahatma print has an unwelcome visitor. A seminal moment in Gandhi's life occurred days later on June 7, 1893, during a train trip to Pretoria, South Africa, when a white man objected to his presence in the first-class railway compartment, although he had a ticket. Refusing to move to the back of the train, Gandhi was forcibly removed and thrown off the train at a station in Pietermaritzburg. His act of civil disobedience awoke in him a determination to devote himself to fighting the deep disease of color prejudice. He out that night to try, if possible, to root out the disease and suffer hardships in the process. From that night forward, the small, unassuming man would grow into a giant force for civil rights. Gandhi formed the Natal Indian Congress in 1894 to fight discrimination. At the end of his year-long contract, Gandhi prepared to return to India until he learned, at his farewell party, of a bill before the Natal Legislative Assembly that would deprive Indians of the right to vote. Fellow immigrants convinced Gandhi to stay and led the fight against the legislation. Although Gandhi could not prevent the law's passage, he drew international attention to the injustice. After a brief trip to India in late 1896 and early 1897, Gandhi returned to South Africa with his wife and children. Gandhi ran a thriving legal practice, and at the outbreak of the Boer War, he raised an all-Indian ambulance corps of 1,100 volunteers to support the British cause, arguing that if Indians expected to have full rights of citizenship in the British Empire, they also needed to shoulder their responsibilities as well. Satyagraha and nonviolent civil disobedience. In 1906, Gandhi organized his first mass civil disobedience campaign, which he called Satyagraha Truth and Firmness, in reaction to the South African Transvaal government's new restrictions on the rights of Indians, including the refusal to recognize Hindu marriages. After years of protests, the government imprisoned hundreds of Indians in 1913, including Gandhi. Under pressure, the South African government accepted a compromise negotiated by Gandhi and General Jan Christian Smuts that included recognition of Hindu marriages and the abolition of a poll tax for Indians. When Gandhi sailed from South Africa in 1914 to return home, Smuts wrote, "The saint has left our shores. I sincerely hope forever." At the outbreak of World War I, Gandhi spent several months in London. In 1919, with India still under the firm control of the British, Gandhi had a political awakening when the newly enacted Rowlatt Act authorized British authorities to imprison people suspected of sedition without trial. In response, Gandhi called for a Satyagraha campaign of peaceful protests and strikes. Violence broke out instead, which culminated on April 13, 1919, in the massacre of Amritsar, when troops led by British Brigadier General Reginald Dyer fired machine guns into a crowd of unarmed demonstrators and killed nearly 400 people. No longer able to pledge allegiance to the British government, Gandhi returned the medals he earned for his military service in South Africa and opposed Britain's mandatory military draft of Indians to serve in World War I. Gandhi became a leading figure in the Indian Home Rule movement. Calling for mass boycotts, he urged government officials to stop working for the crown, students to stop attending government schools, soldiers to leave their posts and citizens to stop paying taxes and purchasing British goods. Rather than buy British manufactured clothes, he began to use a portable spinning wheel to produce his own cloth, and the spinning wheel soon became a symbol of Indian independence and self-reliance. Gandhi assumed the leadership of the Indian National Congress and advocated a policy of non-violence and non-cooperation to achieve home rule. After British authorities arrested Gandhi in 1922, he pleaded guilty to 3 counts of sedition. Although sentenced to a 6-year imprisonment, Gandhi was released in February 1924 after appendicitis surgery. He discovered upon his release that relations between India's Hindus and Muslims had evolved during his time in jail, and when violence between the two religious groups flared again, Gandhi began a 3-week fast in the autumn of 1924 to urge unity. He remained away from active politics during much of the latter 1920s. Gandhi and the Salt March in 1930, Gandhi returned to active politics to protest Britain's Salt Acts, which not only prohibited Indians from collecting or selling salt, a dietary staple, but imposed a heavy tax that hit the country's poorest particularly hard. Gandhi planned a new Satyagraha campaign that entailed a 390-kilometer/240-mile march to the Arabian Sea, where he would collect salt in symbolic defiance of that government monopoly. "My ambition is no less than to convert the British people through non-violence and thus make them see the wrong they have done to India," he wrote days before the march to the British Viceroy, Lord Irwin.